Hello everyone, Nicole here. So the question this week seems to have centered around what it means to take responsibility for our own actions. So I'm going to think about that as what it means to be an adult in our adult ego state. And I'm referring to the PAC model, parent, adult and child ego states, a concept taken from transactional analysis and I use in psychotherapy with all my questions. So it's a piece of the model that defines the makeup, if you like, of our personality. When we look at it in TA, we look at what's called the PAC model, parent, adult and child, and it's diagrammed in this way with three circles perched one on top of the other. The parent ego state, I like to think about it as all that stuff we have in our head. It's our thoughts and our feelings and our attitudes and our behaviors that we often believe are our own, but in fact are copied. They're what we've been handed down. We've swallowed whole. We've inherited through childhood, growing up with our caregivers and people who've been in charge, people who've had the rule book. And it's kind of like all those shoulds and shouldn'ts, do's and don'ts that are based on other people's thoughts, feelings, attitudes and behaviors that we kind of swallow whole and we think are our own. Yeah. So that's the parent ego state. A simple way to think about it is that's the stuff you hold that in actual fact you've been taught. So we think about the parent ego state. I think about it sort of perched here. It's what I hold in my head. My adult ego state, I think about it as being sort of centered in my core. My adult ego state is the part of myself that is the real thinker. It's the part of myself that bases thoughts, feelings, attitudes, behaviors, decisions on my current here and now reality. It's based on my own experience of an event or a thought or an experience, feeling. It's not what I've been taught to believe in. This is what I actually think for myself, and it's very much based on here and now, factual, evidence-based information. So that's the thinking part of me. So it's not what I've been taught. It's what I think for myself. And my child ego state, I kind of think of sort of residing down here, it's sort of belly-centered for me. This is the part of myself that holds all my experiences growing up as a real child, but it's more important, I guess, the seat of my emotions. It's the seat of my feelings, my intuitions, my gut instincts, based on real childhood experiences. It's where I will also hold a lot of my anxiety, scares and worries, but it's also that part of myself that can be really free and creative and spontaneous, and you might say childlike, yeah? So that's a very quick introduction into the PAC model, and I will, if people want me to, follow that up with a more in-depth teach, if you like, on the three-part model ego state. So what does it mean to be an adult in adult, yeah? And take ownership and responsibility for your thoughts, your feelings and your actions. So when we talk about that adult ego state, remember, we're referring to the part of ourselves that is able to remain rational, think clearly and problem solve in a crisis. It's that part of ourselves that forms decisions and opinions and actions based on the here and now reality of a situation. It's our ability to think for ourselves, yeah? Now, when the situation or the event poses some form of real or perceived threat, then remember, we've done this in other videos, those more primitive parts of the brain, those parts of the brain that are constantly scanning the environment for cues to safety and danger, often signal to the other part of the brain and the body that we're under threat. Yeah, that something feels dangerous. And of course, the situation today where guidelines for some are not clear. There's a high level of uncertainty. We still don't know really what's happening or where we're going. That signals danger. Now, the second the brain picks up a cue to danger, it very quickly goes into shutting down that front part of the brain that is the ability to think clearly. That thinking part of the brain quickly goes into shutdown. And as this happens, what is happening inside our personality, for me, is that we quickly shut down the adult ego state. Again, that part of ourselves that's able to stay here and now, remain rational, bank the facts, analyze the situation, and move into problem solving that is appropriate to the current situation. When the adult ego state shuts down, we then very quickly rely on those other two ego states to do our thinking, our feeling, and our behaviors for us. Yeah. So we're likely to either move up into our parent ego state, and for a lot of us, that means becoming a bit more rigid in our thinking. We rely on the thinking of others, believing it to be our own, and we can become very dogmatic, sometimes reliant too much on other people from our past, their thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and attitudes. Yeah, it's commonly sort of diagnosed or recognized in yourself when you find yourself going to something, saying something, or doing something, and you think, "Oh my Lord, that I sound just like my mother," or "That was my father there," or "That's what Granny did." So it's not really based on our rational here and now thinking, yeah? So for some people, we'll go up into our parent and maybe get a bit rigid, opposed to change, and a bit shut down in our thinking, yeah? For others, we might fall into our child ego state and become overwhelmed by the emotion of something, yeah? So if we're in our parent, we're a bit more inflexible, and in our child, we're being moved too much sometimes by the emotion of something. So what we need to do is we need to get back into our adult ego state and think for ourselves. Yeah. In order to do this, we need to do three things. We need to often soothe the child ego state and calm the emotion. That can be simply done by taking a breath, taking a moment, and just acting as your own kind parent to your child, telling your child, actually, things are going to be okay. We're going to work this out. We're using reassuring, validating, soothing experiences to calm that child ego state down so that the emotion and the emotional overwhelm doesn't spiral us kind of out of control and essentially up into anxiety or low mood. So we need to soothe the child. Next, we often have to turn off that parent ego state, which is very often in crisis full of that more negative self-talk, that I should be doing this, I shouldn't be doing that, I need to do this, I need to do that. And it's the thinking based on somebody else's experience. So we need to turn that down. You need to take a switch and say, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to set you aside, come back to you if I need to, but I'm just going to take a moment to check out who's really doing the thinking and the talking here. Whose idea is this? And then I'm going to try and move into my adult ego state, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to present myself with the facts, the here and now facts, the current information, and what makes sense and what is real and appropriate to me, for me, in my situation. Once I do that, I can then move from that fact-based reality into my own thinking and generate my own opinions based on my own thoughts, my own feelings, and what's appropriate for me here and now, and act accordingly. I hope that's helped. Let me know. As I say, all feedback is good feedback. Take care and stay safe.